Hello, Pastor Joel here from Chico First. The end of Judges chapter 1, verse 28 tell us that they did not drive them out completely. And that was what God had told them to do. And Judges makes it seem like they chose not to drive them out instead of them not being able to drive them out. And the book of Judges shows us what happens when God's people don't do all that he has called them to do. Judges is a wake up call of what happens when we disobey God, doing even part of what God has told his people to do, but not all of it. And I want you to think about your own life here. God has given us commands, and if we're not careful, we can be okay with obeying them halfway or even most of the way. But God hasn't called us to obey part of his commands or most of his commands or do most of what he's called us to do. God has invited us and commanded us to obey him with a joyful heart. You see, the way to life is obedience to God. God is where the life is, and he's where the joy is. And there are parts of your life where you aren't giving full obedience to God. Are there parts of your life where you're settling for going part of the way, doing most of what God commands? Are there parts where you're holding back from fully obeying God? See, I'm guessing that there are for every one of us. And we know that we tend to pick and choose which commands we obey or which ones we don't want to obey. We ignore things. We know that we're prone to do even most of what God calls us to do, but not all of it. And the only way that we can walk in full obedience to God's commands is by his grace. And so we pray for God's help in every part of our lives. God, help us to obey you fully with joy.